Hello and good afternoon from the UK at any rate. I'm AgentMeeple. I was here last month. Hello. And today I'm going to be doing a paint along with this little guy. He is a wizard from Primaries. I was just looking at his name and I can't remember what it is. It's like Arakus Landarzad. So I'm only going to be using the Primaries pack today, which is these 5 colours. So the primary focus is going to be mixing, and we'll see if we can get a bit of cloth texture in there as well. But we're going to focus on the mixing. I'm also going to be using Water Plus just to help with my mixing and making any washers and glazes that we'll use. Okay. So I've primed him, I've prepped him and primed him. I've given him a zenithal prime so you can see what's going on. We won't make use of it particularly, it's mostly just so you can see the details and what the miniature looks like on camera. I've previously found that priming them in black pretty much makes them disappear. So, are there any particular colours you guys want to see? We still need to pick a robe colour. We'll need to do that. And I am open to suggestions. I'm always open to suggestions. I think I might go with some purple. Now, I'm going to pretty much mix on the fly. You can also use the colour wheels that come with the Primaries pack. You can find the QR code for it in the box. I don't know where my box is, or you can just go on the website and navigate to it. I believe it's under painting recipes. So I'm going to do 3 drops of pure blue and 1 drop of magenta. And we'll see what this does. I kind of want to go for a soft purple. Ooh, that's quite a rich blue now. It's quite a bluey, purpley blue though, if you look. I'm just going to put some Water Plus on the back of my palette. I'll grab a little bit of that. I think that's a good base colour. We'll start with that. So that's 3 pure blue, pure warm blue, and 1 pure magenta. I think that'll be a good base. So I'm going to start with the cloak. So because they're pures, they're actually translucent. So if we want, we can add a bit of black or a bit of white to make this more opaque. If you're just working with the pures without black and white, you don't necessarily have to thin them down to use them contrast style over the zenithals, which is quite nice. Oh, there's purple. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And apparently he's not stuck to the thing very well. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can re-stick him. So I find with putty you've got to work it a bit. Soften it up so it gets stretchy. Like that. Makes it pliable. Bit of a mess there. Nice thing about INSTAR paints is that they're so thin that even if a layer tears, like this did, you can just paint over it, you can't tell. Like so. You'd never know. Let's get the inside of his robe. So I think we'll do this section of his robe a different colour, just so we'll mix a variety of colours. Okay. Now he also has a little frog behind him, just here. It's like a little toad at the foot. So I'm going to paint that green. So I think I'm going to paint the inner robe green as well. Now you might think, oh well, we can use that pure warm blue and pure yellow to make our green. That will make quite a bright, sort of, I suppose, limey green. If you want a more muted, leafy green, what you can do is you can do, so I'll do 3 drops of pure yellow. And then you can take the pure black. I'm actually just going to put a drop to the side because you don't want a full drop. You definitely don't want a full drop. And then I'm using a size 1 brush. The brush size doesn't really matter too much. You just want to pick up a little black and mix it in. And this gives you a really nice sort of fern green. Grab a bit of pure Water Plus. A good mix. But it's more muted, as a desaturated green. So we'll make use of this on the frog. Now this will be more opaque than the purple mix I did. So there we go. So far the values are all quite similar. I should make him a hodgepodge wizard. Give him a different coloured hat as well, maybe. really mix him up. Just get this arm painted as well. Ah, I've missed a bit of rope just there. So I'm using a wet palette, but you can use a tile or a well palette. I have a wet palette from having used previous paints. It works for me. The main reason why I'm using it on stream is because you can actually see the mixing really well. My well palettes tend to reflect too much light, so you can't see the mixes. But a tile works really well, as does a well palette. Just touch up around the top of his hood there. I'm going to do another coat on the ropes. Second layer. You don't have to match my colours. It's also worth noting that there's no such thing as wrong colours. It's more about the intensity of the colours, so the value of them. Just get in there as well. So pure black and pure white are more opaque, whereas the rest of the pures are translucent, which is why I now have the same depth of colour when I've done one coat with this and 2 coats with this. They have about the same coverage now, and that's because I added black to the yellow, which made it more opaque. Whereas by combining two of the other pures, it's not made it quite so opaque. The pure warm blue is softer and slightly more opaque than pure blue, but not by a huge amount in terms of its level of transparency. Okay. I don't know, maybe should we do the hat in purple? I think we should do the hat in purple, actually. Let's do the hat purple. We'll bring it all the way up. Okay, there we go. We'll do another coat on the toad. I'll do another coat on these robes. And then I can start highlighting. Okay. Now, the easiest way to highlight this will be to add black or white to my colours for the highlights and the shadows. However, for the green, I am actually going to add yellow, which is also a very good colour for producing highlights. Let's do another. I think I missed this sleeve just there. There we go. It's not too bad. I mean, I'll be able to touch up when I add in my highlights. There we go. So I used 3 drops of pure yellow. I'm actually going to go with 5 this time. Hello! Well, I am AgentMeeple. I am one of the sponsored painters for INSTAR. And I'm doing paint-alongs, so yay! There we go. So a little bit of black. Because I used extra yellow, it's created a nice highlight. But it's still got that nice fern greeny colour. But yeah, this is the plan is to do this monthly. So today I'm only using the Primaries pack. Mostly it's to showcase some mixing and a little bit of how to work with the alpha range. I believe they'll be going up on YouTube as well later, so you can always catch them later. But it does mean the channel's going to be up a bit more often. I'm just blending in here. So I'm trying to keep some shadows. There we go. So it's now changing the contrast because I've increased the values on the robes in certain areas. So the robes become the inner robes become the focus now because I've changed the contrast. This has a higher value. As a general rule, the higher the value, the more focus it will draw, but only if there is lower values. There needs to be contrast. more in there. I'm just going to layer this up, bring up the highlights some more. Still got a toad to highlight as well. But black and yellow will make a green, and a very nice desaturated but yellowy green. I find it's very good for more natural tones than mixing blue and yellow. It looks more leafy. Highlight up the frog, legs, shoulders. There we go. Bring in another one, another coat on this side. I'm going to blend down here now. So I've still got my original green, which is in the shadows. So I can just wet blend the two together. Which gives a smoother transition. The easiest way of wet blending with any colours is if you have a wet paper towel next to you to wipe your brush on. It's faster than washing your brush, which is particularly important with the alpha paints because they dry so fast. You just layer that in, quickly wipe off. It doesn't matter if there's still a little bit left. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean. So, highlight colour, wipe off, recess colour, blend it in. So I've wiped off again, I'm just smoothing them out. Okay, so from this one I'm actually going to add some pure white to create a last round of highlight because I don't want pure yellow on its own. So I'm just going to separate off some of this. It's probably a couple of drops worth there. I used the wrong thing. I meant to be on that one. Sorry about that. I just noticed my live scene was wrong. There we go. So I'm going to use one drop of yellow, white in with my mix even. I'm getting confused now. Because it's gone quite yellowy, but it's very muted yellow. So take off a lot of it and you can just sort of stipple it on. This will provide some texture. By stipple I mean just poke it with your brush. There we go. We'll highlight the frog again. You kind of just got to build up your highlights. Still only using to this one. For this side. Still on the primaries pack. Not adding anything else. There we go. But that's highlighted up his robe really nicely. And that's just 3 colours. So this has worked quite well as a triad. So 3 pure yellow with a little dab of pure black, 5 pure yellow with a little dab of pure black, and then we take some of this mix and add a drop of pure white to make our highlight, our final highlight. So you've essentially got shadow, mid-tone, highlight. So I'm going to do something similar with the cloak. Okay, so this one's arguably a little bit trickier because the 3 pure warm blue to 1 pure magenta is quite rich, so I can't add more pure magenta or more pure warm blue because it will change the colour. So the best way to do this is going to be to take some of my mix, split some off there, go with a little bit more. So I've done about half of it. I'm going to add 1 drop of pure white. Mix that in. You can see now that it is very purple. Just going to grab a little bit of Water Plus. That's quite a bright purple now. And I'm going to use that to highlight the robe, the cloak, I suppose, and his hat. Although his hat needs another coat. So it will also so I'm pretty much just painting down, following the line of the cloak. Just going to add that second coat to the hat. You can see that it's almost contrast style, the way it's sunk into the shadows. There isn't. He's simply just a mini I picked for the paint along. Pretty much just picking random colours for mixing. Thank you. The pure warm blue, pure magenta does make a very nice purple. It's so rich. Which I think is more... I mean, the tones themselves, the pure colours are very rich anyway. But when combining them, you get much better results. I think his hat might need a bit more love from the base colour. Okay. I think for the cloak I'm actually going to go the other way and make a shadow. So I'm going to make use of the pure black I've got out here. I'm going to mix some of my original. So we want, it's going to take most of it. So this is about twice the size of what I have in the pure black. So when I mix them together, it'll look mostly black, but it'll have a nice purple tint to it. Which I can then very carefully paint into the shadows, the recesses of his robes. But this will give it a little more depth. I don't know, maybe a tanned tone. It's a little more tricky with the Primaries pack to get some variety. The Flesh pack definitely works better for making up skin tones. Otherwise, darker tones in particular can look a little too purpley. And lighter skin tones end up looking quite yellowy, like they've got jaundice, if you're not careful. Definitely don't want to end up with jaundice. Get that in there. So yeah, I've gone the other way on this one to what I did with the body robe. Let's put a bit of shadow under that hat there. You kind of just got to pick where your shadows go. Wherever it feels it makes sense. in there. We want a little bit under that there. I'm going to put shadow in under there as well. So you can see the big difference now between the cloak and the hat. The hat still looks quite flat. I'm going to take my highlight again. I'm just going to work that in a little bit more. So the other thing as well is if you build up, you can increase the opacity and the intensity. So you can actually create transitions of colour, of tone, and smooth your blends simply by layering more, but make the area of application a bit narrower. Take a little bit of this, just going to blend that down the side there. Like so. This one smooths on really easily. There we go. Just smoothing out that transition a little bit. And take the highlight and touch up again. Really smooths it out though. Okay, we could try adding a little bit of texture to this cloak, make it look like a rough fabric. So to do that, I'm actually going to take some of this one, my highlight, separate off that. We'll adjust it like that so you can see. I'm going to add, this is about 50-50 mix if I add a drop of pure white. Just grab a little bit of water plus. Okay, so I now have this nice lilac. I'm going to drop down a brush size, or two. It's actually a 3-0. And then I'm just going to lightly so I'm only doing this on the lowest sections where the highest highlights would be. So wherever it curves out, I'm doing it at a slight angle, so we're going like that. This one I'm going to change it slightly because it's starting to flow round. But I'm focusing on the lower sections of the robe where it's billowing out. So I'm actually going to go higher here. And reduce it as I go down, because that's curving under, as you can see, so it'll catch less light. Do similar on the hood. Okay, so now I've mapped them out. To finish that effect off, I'm going to do the same thing, but perpendicular. It'll bolden the highlights, but it adds a crosshatch texture, so it looks more like fabric. You get a nice weave effect. You want to be really light with the brush, very, very gentle. There's barely anything on my brush for this. A little bit there. And that provides a nice texture on the cloak. Okay, so I'm going to highlight the hat. Right, I've actually run out of paint to use, so I'm going to mix up some more of my purple and make more shadow and a little more highlight. So 3 drops of warm blue, one pure magenta, a little bit of water plus, give that a mix. Okay. So I've split these off again. One drop of pure black there. So I've partly done it separate so that way I can check that I have the right ratios, or roughly the right ratios of paint. It will never be exact. There we go. That's about 1:1 of that one. But you can get it pretty close. Close enough that you won't actually be able to tell, which is the important bit. But there's a reason why paint, you know, decorating paint comes in match numbers. And even If you buy paints from other companies, some of them will do colour matches to their spray cans, and they will state that it's 99% accuracy, which is true, but that's only because they can't get 100% accuracy. But 99% is more than accurate. Something more than accurate enough for painting minis. There we go. So I've added in some shadow. Give it a mix. So this has come out a little bit lighter than previous, so I can add in a little bit more purple. Grab a bit more there as well. There we go. That's more like it. And bear in mind that you also don't need to worry about it being super accurate because you're blending most of the time. This isn't even on the same part of the model, so. There we go. Just take that around there. I'm also going to sink more shadow into that area there. I'll take the highest highlight, just gently put that in around the top of the hood. There we go. Take this one, just smooth it out a little bit there. Smooth that one out. There we go. Smooth that sleeve out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take my 3-0 again, and I'm going to do a similar thing on the hat. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky because there's not a lot of space to work on the hat for this kind of thing, but we can do a little bit here. Get down there. Again, very little on the brush. I'm going to do a bit there as well. You gotta pick and choose where you want your highlights. Quite carefully. Particularly when you're doing stuff like this. There we go. Actually going to go back in on the cloak, just here. Bring this up a touch more. So that's the other thing you can do as well. You can go back when you look at it and notice, actually I'm missing a little bit there. Don't be afraid to go back over areas. It's paint. Okay. I'm going to stipple in a little more highlight on the robe. So I've kept this fairly thick for the dotting. So this is a different texture. So, quite a bit different. I'm going to take some of the mid-tone. I'm going to stipple that in just here so it blends it in for the texture as well. So you kind of just want that down the sides. Not all the way into the recesses, but try not to make it too uniform. There, you can see it's added some texture in on that one, and we've got texture in on this one. Okay, there's actually some space here for some texture, so I'm going to add a little bit in there. So I'm just going to highlight it up again, like so. While I wait for that to dry, I'm going to touch up some highlights on the hat. So a little bit in there. Blend that up a bit better. There we go. Okay. Just waiting for that to dry now. Okay. I think that's probably dry enough. So we'll take the purple highlight, add that texture in on this section here. There we go. So it also brings highlight round to the front too. So the green is still a higher value than the purple at present. That's drawing your attention. Okay, skin. So I'll do the skin next because it'll provide a nice example for making up skin tones. Skin tones are a little tricky, but not too bad. The best thing to do is to use the colour wheels for reference. So if I just navigate to INSTAR Paint, wait for that to load. It's been a bit slow. And then you can pick something on the colour wheel. So now that I'm on the site, we have mixing formulas. We can scroll down, go to colour wheels, we'll go with primaries. Wait for that to load. Okay. So we probably don't, so we don't want one of these. I'll just zoom in. So these are all really quite bright raw colours. We definitely don't want to look in purple or pink. So if we keep going down, So adding pure black, these are all probably too dark. It looks like you can see the impact. So we want to actually add the opposite colour, so we want to desaturate to make the right tone. Right, so let's have a little look. So combining all three is essentially how you often end up desaturating. So these are actually more purples. So this one is 5 pure warm blue to 5 pure magenta, because we go round. 5 pure warm blue, 5 pure magenta, with 10, because it goes all the way in. So if we want the very middle one, we then add 10 pure yellow, and that'll give us this tiny little speck here. You barely even see it. So I don't want it quite that dark. So I think what I might do is I might drop it to 4, 4 and 10. So you can use it as a guide, or you can use it as absolute. So if I'm going to drop it to 4, 4 and 10, I'm actually going to mix up a smaller quantity, because I can do 2, 2 and 5. So we can do, so that's the pure yellow, pure warm blue. So we'll start with the warm blue, and we'll do 2 drops of pure warm blue to 2 drops of pure magenta. So the ratio is actually the same. It's still a 50-50 mix of pure warm blue and pure magenta. I'm just trying to make up less on my palette. And then I can add in five pure yellow. Give that a mix. See, we've got this nice rich colour. It's kind of it's like an orangey brown. You can see. Actually makes quite a nice skin tone. Now you've got to be careful with this. If you add white to this, it'll start going purpley, because it is purple. Not that your eyes can tell, and it's mixing colours is about perception, not about the science of it in some ways. You can break it down into science, but this purple, for example, doesn't look purple. When it comes to painting minis, that's adequate. So we'll paint him up in this. Got his face to do. So I'm doing his face before I do his beard. And I'm actually going to do, so I'm going to use this as the base colour on his belt, which goes in there, and he's, there we go. I'll do the bag in a darker colour, I think. And just wait for that to dry. Need to decide what colour to do the little orb at the top as well. I think we'll just go with a grey. Classic grey for his beard. Okay, so that's a good mid-tone for his skin. So while I wait for that to dry, I'm actually going to separate off this. So I've separated some off. I'm actually going to add a little bit more pure yellow. So I'm going to add one more drop of pure yellow to that. Some water plus and mix it in. And then I'm going to add a drop of pure white. So adding in the yellow first will help prevent it from going purpley. See, we're getting a more of a skin tone, rather than it going purple when you add the white in. Which I'll be able to then use to highlight. So we're starting with the shadows essentially. And I'm going to work out and highlight the skin. So that was the second coat of the brown on, the darker brown. So we'll wait for that to dry and then we'll highlight up. So we're going for a sort of like a medium skin tone. We're not going for super white Caucasians, not as white as me. However, I can take this and we can make something like that. So if I do, so I'll do 3 drops of pure white. I'm going to take a brush load of this and mix it in. And this will kind of give me a linen-y colour. It's quite ivory. So this is how you would get a very Caucasian skin tone. You'd have to start with this kind of mix and then sort of progress. So while I wait for that to dry, I can paint his undershirt in this linen-y colour, like so. So I'm going to start highlighting up his hands. And his face. His face is a little tricky to highlight. It's mostly in shadow anyway. Mm-hmm. There you go. I'll do one more round of highlighting. Now, skin tends to be quite satiny, so it's quite reflective. Because your skin has a natural moisture to it. There we go. So I'm actually going to make use of this on his skin for the highest highlights. So I'm going to use a nice small brush. Just gently put in a little bit of stippling. Like so, a little bit around there. And on that side. Do a little bit on there. There we go. That brings up the highlights on his skin. I'm also now going to use this to add some texture. To his leather belt. Like that. Okay. So that's his skin done. We've got the linen to do to finish. Which we can actually just highlight with pure white. I have noticed that I've caught the inside of his robe just there. So tidy that up a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to highlight with pure white on the robes. I'm also going to sink some of this into the recesses. So you can use the same colours in several areas and just alter it a step, and you'll get quite different effects. You're essentially shifting the value impact. Over there we go. Right, so the shadow is that's probably a bit too warm, so I think we'll go with some magenta. So if I add some magenta, a little bit of warm blue. So we'll try these two. So I'm going to try adding a little this to some warm blue. So this makes it really cold. And then I can add in. There we go. So that makes it a nice cold colour for sinking into the recesses on the robe, on the cloth. It's still quite a high value, but it's now cold, so it'll sink better. And then we can glaze over with a different tone. So I'm just trying to create that contrast right now. We can add in this. A little bit in there. So you can apply more than one colour as well. touch it in. So I'm using a really small brush so I can get into the crevices. Get the same on this side. A little bit in there. So you can apply thin layers of this one to transition. There we go. That's his robes done. I'm actually going to make use of this as well for his bag. So we'll go with a blue bag. So I find that using the same paints repeatedly actually helps tie your miniature together when it comes to colour composition. Yeah, so we've got a nice light blue bag at present. We'll darken that up. It's a basis for an off. Ah, yes, I could. So use this one. So go for like a birchwood staff. So if I do this in this tone. Nice suggestion. I appreciate that. Just leave that to dry. I'm going to add another coat to the bag because that's mostly dried now. There we go. Okay. I'm going to make a wash. I'm actually going to make a wash. Okay, so I'm going to make quite a dark wash. So I'm going to stick with pure warm blue. So we'll go with 1 drop of pure warm blue. We'll put out a little spot of black. So 1 drop of black out. I'll just pop that over there. So I'm going to take a little bit of black. So just dipping the tip of the brush into the black. Mix that in. So we get a nice navy. So I've still essentially got 1 drop. So I'm going to add 3 drops of water plus and make this into a wash, which I'm then going to apply to the bag. Now it will tint the original colour as well. If you go with a really high value contrast, you can get some great wash effects. So I'm just waiting for that bag to dry. While I do that, while we wait for that, we'll do another coat on the staff. There we go. A little bit more there. So the wash is still drying, but you can see that it's sinking in nicely. Okay. I'm actually going to take this. Needs a bit of water. Add a drop of water plus. There you go, that revived that. I'm going to paint this in the highest green that I have. Like so. Okay. Right, the staff's looking pretty good. So, to create a different effect to the linen underclothes and his hands, I'm going to use the same set of colours. So I'm going to separate off some of this, pop it here, grab a little bit more. I'm going to make a wash. So it's going to be a heavy wash, so we've got more glaze. So if I do 2 drops of water plus, give that a really good mix. Okay, so we've got shadow here. I'm just going to lay this in wherever I have shadow. Like so. Grab that, and then I can blend it. So because it's a glaze and it's really soft, when you blend it in with a sturdier colour or sturdier paint, something that's a bit thicker and more paint-like, it kind of bleeds in, but it blends much nicer than if you blend with, well, the colours sometimes. There we go. So we'll get some more on this side. Blend that there as well. Just paint it right alongside. Same here. There we go. So the staff is really quite bright now. I'm going to take this one. Again, separate some off. This time I'm going to add a spot of black. A bit more of that, there we go. Okay. With my 3-0, I take this, it's almost kind of like a greenish brown. That's because the amount of yellow in it. I'm just going to steadily paint some patterning onto the wood. Just notice there's actually an area here it's not well enough covered. So these little areas hidden away behind other sections that'll get you. Add in that wash. There we go. There we go. The idea is to make this look like the grain of the wood. Don't forget to do it on both sides. There we go. Right, where are we up to? Mix that in. Add a little spot more black. There we go. So I'm actually going to use this to paint around these sections. Just remember, perfection is not required. Ever. Art is not perfect. I'm using the side of my brush to catch these. There we go. Have a little more paint. There we go. Okay, so we'll paint the little glow globe in yellow. Paint the stone. I'm just going to use pure yellow, pretty much straight out the bottle. Just put a bit more pure water plus on my palette. So painting up the top of the crystal. Like so. My navy wash has dried on here, so I'm actually going to apply it again on the front and round onto the sides. Pretty much everywhere. Not too stressed about getting it perfect. Just want to sink it in a little bit more. When it's dry, I'll highlight. So one final thing I'm going to do on the staff, now that all this is dry, is I'm actually going to make a glaze. So I'm just going to grab some of this. In fact, actually, I'm not going to need that again, so I can just make that into the glaze. So I'll add 2 drops of water plus. A really good mix. And then just glaze this one over the upper areas. I'm going to take this one and glaze it in underneath. But this will sink the patterning that I've painted on into the wood. That again. So I'm just going to use little spots of this, like so. Right, my yellow was dried, so I'm going to apply another coat. While it's wet, go in, spot this in at the top. And allow it to flow down. So I'm actually just making that brighter at the top. Beard. So for the beard, we'll go with some pure white. I want some pure warm blue out, and I've got some pure black out. So I'm going to take a little spot of pure warm blue, a little spot of pure black, and mix them into pure white. So adding in the pure warm blue stops it from being a flat grey. I've actually got a very, very desaturated blue. Paint his beard in this one. so. This is mostly dried, so I can take some pure warm blue. I'm going to mix that in there. Like so. We're getting quite a bright blue there. It's nice. We use this to very carefully highlight the bag. Use a smaller brush for a couple of areas. Quite tricky. So the detail's not quite raised enough to just glaze over it with my, to sort of glance it with my brush. How much you go into this is entirely up to you. Get a bit more wash as well. Just pin wash that. There you go. Go in there with a bit more shadow. There we go. Adds a bit more crinkle to his top. That's better. So beard and orb. That's pretty much all we're working on now. And then we'll be done with him. So I'm going to add out some more pure white. I am then going to mix in. So at first I'm going to make a wash. I'm going to take some pure black and mix it into this pure blue. Pure warm blue. Go with a bit more pure warm blue. You might be like, oh no, he's going to have a blue beard. His shadows won't look that blue when I've done. Honest. It's very similar to what I've got here, but I've gone with a bit more blue actually. And that one's running out. Okay. So sink that in. It looks super contrasted now, but it won't do once it dries. So as it dries, it'll look like there's less colour. Okay, I'm also going to take a little bit of this white, I'm going to add some to this yellow. This yellow up here. Start to layer in some highlight, a bit more. So just pulling it up. I'm painting about 2/3 the little orb. You can also take some of the pure yellow and paint down if you need to patch in. Take a little bit of this for just around the bottom, because this will actually make a really nice shadow. Works best if the yellow's still wet. There we go. A bit more yellow, lemon even. There we go. Now this actually won't end up being pure white when I've done at the top, because the paint's still wet. It just gives me a much brighter tone to work with, and then I'll put a spot of pure white at the top. Very bright little glass orb now. Okay. And then I can take some of this beard colour and mix that in with what's left of the pure white. Oh, we got a little bit of shadow there, but that works quite well. Now my recesses are still wet, but they're also pretty deep. So I'm focusing my highlights in a band across here where the light will be. Like this. And we can do another one just here. A little bit on the end. So when painting hair, it works better to paint the value of hair. So if you know someone with long hair or have long hair, if you sort of kink it, it's really shiny wherever it bends. And then it goes really it goes a lot darker, more the tone that you are aware of. You know, when you say, oh, I've got brown hair, it's that colour. And that's what I've done here. So I've picked out the sort of outer curves and highlighted those, because then you get a more natural highlight than if you paint the texture. So touch there. So here's another one. Like so. So one last thing to do, I'm going to add a little spot of white at the top. Just like that. Add like extra brightness to that. And that's him painted. You can pretty much use any of the colours we previously used. The browns would work really well. You could mix up this black and brown mix again for the base. Whatever you fancy, really. But there we go. You could if you really wanted to paint his eyes. I would not recommend it because his eyes are really hard to get to. The sculpt isn't great for that. Like, he's pretty much lost his detail under the hood, under his hat, so you'll have a hard time painting his eyes. I would stick to his face just being in shadow. That's what I'm going to do. There we go. Our first paint along of Wizard, in this case. Woo! Just 5 colours, that's the full Primaries pack. And you can get a real nice mix of different colours, different values. You don't need, you know, 112 different colours, with 23 of them being the same colour with ever so slight different shade changes. I mean, we're talking differences not even that much. You know, some of you hold them together and go, I can't tell the difference between these. You don't need all those. You just need 5 colours and you can make all the colours you need. I'll put some stuff on the base later. You can use any of the browns. But I'll probably add tufts and stuff. But this one will be a good one. And this is a wash actually that I made. So. All the green, you could make some of that, make some more of that again. Use that for the base. Maybe not because of the frog, but you know, it's your call. A little toadie would get lost. But yeah. I will finish the base off and base him with tufts and stuff later, but that's not really part of this. I'm mostly focusing on INSTAR paints and mixing. So thank you very much for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I will catch you again next month. So the next paint along stream will be on the 5th of May. It'll be the first Wednesday of every month, and I'm going to use paint a little halfling with a lantern, and I'm going to show you some OSL. We're going to use some sneaky value techniques to do a really nice OSL that's quite lazy and easy to do. It doesn't have to be hard. So next month we'll be doing some OSL on the 5th of May. I will tweet the name of that little guy so you can find him and buy him if you want to paint along. In the meantime, take care, have a good week, and I will hopefully see you then. In the meantime, you can follow me. I'm AgentMeeple anywhere. So I stream on Twitch. I have my own channel as well. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me any of those through any of the platforms. You can even hit me up on Facebook. I don't use Facebook that much, but you can message me on Facebook. So thank you very much, guys. Take care, and I will see you next time. I think we will... we'll see who's online, and we'll see about popping over to someone. I wonder... Dun, 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 dun. If... let's have a little look. We'll go on over to miniatures then. So pop you over there, and I will catch you next time. So thank you very much, guys. Take care.